Okay, here we go. It is none other than March 14th, Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team, and we're underway with the agenda of I've put up here chair opening comments. Um, as usual, I have
Hmm.
my administrative tidbits. We have some late breaking news that I'm going to ask some folks to talk about, and then we'll wander into project updates, outreach slash promotion, project management, product developments, and then we're going to play around in something from the aviation world called threat avoidance. It's kind of a technique the leadership team's been using for a bit to try to channel how we want to think about what sort of things could derail our process and how to think about solutions to keep that from happening. And as usual, posted there at the bottom, our next large group meeting will be on June 13th at 1 p.m. And the typical tickler gets sent out after this event. You can get a chance to look at it. Let me clear. Uh, okay. I think everything on the chat is good. We're good to go. So with that, Barb, the floor is yours.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. It's excellent that you're all with us today. We've really look forward to input, ideas, and comments as we move forward. You'll hear those of you that don't know where we're at. I will give you an exciting update, and we really need your feedback, like I said, and help us with direction forward. So we're all ears to your feedback. So with that, I can't wait for the late breaking news.
Not as fancy as channel 11 or 9 or whatever the case might be. But
Okay.
okay. So administrative updates as usual. Just the light stuff here. Our next leadership meeting, March 22nd, if you want to kind of wander in and see what we're up to. That's at 10 a.m. And just send me a tickler. Uh, they're at chair@mgaepc.org. I've already beat up the fact that we'll have to do this 3 times. So this is number 2. Our next large group meeting is Thursday, June 13th at 1 p.m. So here's where Dean gets thrown under the bus. Um,
Oh,
late last night, I got a tickler from Dean saying, "Hey, this is going on," and we just got a quick update from Dean that, in fact, this did not get looked at today. They were originally going to do, what was it, Dean? First reading on this?
Yeah, so just the initial committee hearing was going to take place on this bill, but that's been put off. I've got no explanation so far as to why it was delayed. And this is just one item amongst many that are in this revamp proposed for the Minnesota one call law. This one I thought would have special interest to this group because unlike previous iterations as this draft has been in the refinement process, uh, everything previous just said a facility operator will be required to GPS maps. Now, this language just appeared this week in the latest iteration. And I don't know how much thought has been put behind it, but I don't think anybody really in the engineering side of the stakeholder groups has really taken a close look at this yet. But basically, it provides that the maps for newly installed or newly abandoned infrastructure will need to be GPSed, and the maps will need to be in accordance with ASCE 75 standards, or excuse me, in accordance with their guidelines. And that is new to my knowledge. That's not received much, if any, discussion in the industry.
I saw this Ralph there with me. I saw this yesterday when it was forwarded to us at the RTMC for comments. while MnDOT is actually doing a lot of GPS things, so I think this is going to hit us less than other operators. I think it could be a significant thing. There's a lot of other things, a handful of other things in that proposed verbiage that could be issues as well.
Oh, and I see Phil Mace is on the phone, so that's great. He'll be able to weigh in on this. The one comment that I made to the representative last night by email is that I thought that the stakeholders with expertise ought to be weighing in as to whether this is appropriate or not. And I said the one question I had is, aren't some of the guidelines that are contained in ASCE 75 really designed more towards asset management and maintenance, and not to just underground damage prevention? And I thought for underground damage prevention, if that's the reason for this provision, the stakeholders may be able to get by with something a little bit less. But Phil, I don't know, any thoughts on that?
Well, it's all geared for both asset management, damage prevention. I mean, it's trying to basically get standardized digital data so that it can be consumed for multiple uses. So and we're by the way, we are initiating our 27 update revision for the 75 standard, because I mean, this in the initial release that we gave out, we just basically tried to identify, here are the data fields. We really didn't provide a schema or a lot of other elaboration like what you're talking about. What's the usage, or how can the data be utilized? So we can provide that clarification and address these things. But I think the idea is to get it into a digital format. Whether it's the data information is managed at the utility or at the DOT, or it can be a combination of such, but at least you've got a common format or information that you can use for exchanging, and for bringing into augmented reality viewing, into BIM applications, GIS, CAD, and there's a parallel effort going on right now at OGC. I shouldn't say parallel, but a kind of a next step, an interchange or exchange standard in an integration standard called MUDI, the Model for Underground Data Definition Integration. And they're writing that's an OGC standard, and all your Esri and Autodesk and MicroStation, and everybody that does these big spatial applications comply with OGC. They've adopted both the 75 and the 38 attributes into their standards. So, going forward, the information, if you at least follow 75 right now, you'll be set up so that all these new, exchanging data will be somewhat seamless, and you'll see a lot more utilization of that data, I think, because you'll have the attributes about, how accurate it is and how good it is with it too. I don't know if that helped answer that question or not.
It's a start. I think the one thing that I'm concerned about is not creating a backlash in segments of the industry that will encourage people to dig in their heels against any kind of requirements. And I have some concerns that because the way the statute is drafted, it would apply to all facility operators. It would apply to, Roseau, Minnesota, just as much as Minneapolis. And so the question I have is, will requiring that they follow all the guidelines of ASCE 75 create a cost issue that will cause them to push back against this? Because we're looking to follow the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And I'm a little worried that if something overbroad finds its way just into a proposal for the damage prevention statute, that not only will it not pass, but it will help start a coalition of those who might be against GPS mapping, who otherwise might not be.
Yeah,
So
and you're speaking
kind
with yeah, your concerns are well founded. That exactly happened in Las Vegas. I think the city tried to push a mandate on as-built requirements. Now 75. So let me clarify. 75 is very scalable. So you could actually take the most rudimentary record information and push it in this format, and you have the attributes that tell you, yeah, this is very schematic level. It's not georeferenced very well, and you'd have but I mean so it's not two things, I guess. One, it's scalable, so you can crank it up or relax it to make it easy to use and low cost. You could use low cost equipment. The other thing is geez, I just lost my second thought. It's coming to me. Dang it. Let's see. It's the standards. Oh yeah. The other thing is, we made it so that I'm just seeing the statute for the first time, this bill here. So I haven't read it very thoroughly. This is
right. This is just new
right
this week. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. This is interesting.
It is not law yet, to be clear. It's just being introduced into the Minnesota House for consideration.
And I think what would be, I mean, because this is the only standard that's out there right now. So what I want to say is, in Iowa, when we did our research effort for Iowa DOT, we recommended that the utilities manage their information. There are a lot of the utilities already have a GIS, and they're already managing the information. And what we looked at when we talked to like Mid-American and different utilities, it's just tweaking what they're already doing so that it's basically mapping their information into the 75 standard. So it's not really adding anything to it. It's just making the digital in a standardized format so that you can we can exchange and talk to each other, and we don't have this horrible process right now. I mean, this will make it a lot cheaper and easier right now. You think about it right now, if you want information on a utility, you got to call the utility. They can go out, I mean, on a design ticket, they can either paint the ground, they can send you records that are typically PDFs or images or schematics, or they can meet with you, and then you got to take that information, try to survey it and reference it and bring it into CAD and bring it, so that you're into your own standards. And it's just a clunky, there's all kinds of pitfalls that can happen with it. Here, now you can just exchange that information digitally, and you've got attributes about it, and everybody, I mean, it just makes it painless. The utilities we talked to, like Mid-American, they said, look, this is great. Frankly, the DOT only represents about 5% of our calls for information. Most of it's come from cities and counties and all these projects. And we spend most of our time just responding to these requests for information. And if they could make that simple, and painless, I mean, it's gonna be a real enhancement. So I hear your concerns, and they're good. I think we need to articulate what's actually being required here, and the benefits that are going to come with it.
Yep. So
we may need to reach back and have an offline discussion on this.
Yes.
But thanks for your input.
Yeah.
Well, Dean, I think we could go back to AGC and see how they understand this standard, and also what they're expecting to get out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, so if we could do that, maybe you and I could do that. Yeah.
One final input would be, to me, it seems to me that this is a significant change, and perhaps the way to facilitate acceptance would be in the tightening of the language, but more importantly, allowing a longer um, spool up period. The timelines that the must do dates in here I dropped off as a function, but they're pretty darn close.
Yeah.
So I think if it was they had a better phase in period, I think that would help mitigate some of the concern.
Okay.
Barb, if we could move on real quick, the
Yeah.
issue statewide data sets and the GSOC, uh, basically, as an extension of the state function in this chair capacity, I've long had concern that we could look at or work towards trying to facilitate a unified approach to obtaining data. And through the outreach you received this morning from Allison, which I had no idea was inbound, I believe Allison's actually on the call. I think that's a superb opportunity to do some collective back scratching, if you will, in terms of what's mandated for roll up for OCC's purposes and for what the state can provide. So, I do you have any additional thoughts?
Well,
Steve, I can
maybe,
comment on this too.
Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks,
Yeah,
Randy.
I'm Randy Knipple, and Allison's here as well. But this whole underground utilities effort is under the Emergency Preparedness Committee of the Minnesota Geospatial Advisory Council, and another group, work group that's been created under the council that I co-chair is focused on raising awareness of these statewide data sets and making sure that larger consumers of data, GIS data, are taking advantage of those statewide data sets. And we're also using that as potential leverage to get more counties to opt in to allowing their data to be distributed, included and distributed with those statewide data sets. We just met this week, and this was something that came up. We actually had St. Louis County comment on something about being approached by Gopher State One call for providing their data and asking, once they provide it to the statewide data sets, can't they just use that? And so Allison took the lead on sending out that communication on behalf of our work group and the council and MinGeo. And Allison, I'm happy if you'd comment as well.
Thanks, everybody. Yes, so the Geospatial Advisory Council comes up with priorities yearly, and one of the top priorities for the many past years has been sharing of statewide parcel data, address point data, and road centerline data. So in the past, time that I've been in this role, been trying to focus on that. This in the past couple of months, we've released the first versions of the statewide address point database and the road centerline databases. And we're trying to get anybody that needs those data sets, instead of reaching out to counties for them individually, to go and find those on the Geospatial Commons, because they're in one standardized system. We put them in the same coordinate system. And currently there's about, I think, 25 or so counties in the points and road center lines, but that will be growing over time. We're trying to be respectful of the counties and include their data sets when they are ready to do so, because some of them might like to pass that by their board to let them know that's happening. But we anticipate that will grow over time. So as Randy said, one of the reasons they might want to participate is if they don't have to provide data to many different groups or agencies or organizations. So if this cuts down on a county providing data directly to GSOC, then we're all in support of that and trying to support that effort. And it was It was Douglas County, actually, Randy, that was asking us about it, but it doesn't matter. It could have been St. Louis County too, right? Oh, I think.
All right,
Right.
sorry about that confusion.
It's all right.
Yeah. So Allison, you and Tammy and I, our general manager, will talk and see what you get. We've done pretty well because by law they have to give it to us. So,
Mhm.
but let's see what we need to do to connect. And I see we have something. We'll schedule something.
Yeah, we've
Thank you
got a
for
meeting
reaching out.
set up. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. Okay. I think that
What
concludes.
is the link, Allison? Where do you go to get these data sets?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Where would you go? Where would someone go to get these data sets?
I can put the links in the chat for you, but the
That'd be great.
geospatial
Thank you.
commons, but I'll put the 3 links to the parcel data, the address point data, and the road center line data.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're running a little late, but that was
That's
well
great.
worth it. And I think we've got some slop towards the end here, so I think we're in good shape actually. So project updates, as I refer to it, is we're going to go into the swim lanes. We'll be there for the next what does that work out to? My brain says something like a little bit over an hour. So here we go. And off to the pool we go. Swim lane 1, outreach and promotion. I've got basically 5 updates elements in there for you: past events, upcoming events, our website, promotional media developments, and anticipated need for product feedback. We'll be sending out some surveys and be looking for folks to help us because we're getting to the point where we're having, if you will, first iteration for the larger group to take a look at and provide comment. Past events, December 14th, Bob Vasquez presented on one of these town hall panels. I believe that was sponsored by the folks over at Scott Landis and crew. And then January 17th, Barb was at the Minnesota Construction Summit and also wandered up to do some skiing up in Banff on February 26th through 28th. So Barb, do you want to comment on those 2 events?
Yeah, the construction summit was well attended, and I talked with Laura Ziegler afterwards, and basically the comment was, keep going. We would like to get you in front of the municipality organizations so that they can learn more about it. So that was very good, getting that word out to a broader group. Second, the utility safety partners, that's up Canadian provinces. That was very well received. I got to the point that I was, opening up for discussion. Some people had questions about some of the concerns that usually get brought up, and people in the audience were responding to that rather than me. So it's just getting, it just shows the kind of groundswell that people are getting behind in terms of not just us owning it, but other folks in the industry are starting to own it. So that was quite interesting to see that support from the audience. So. And then today I gave a talk. Both Kevin and Joe were there. The Waterworks Association for Southern Minnesota. Again, that was well attended. Good conversation about it. Good use of it. And again, just more socializing the idea and getting folks to know what's coming, but more importantly, what input they have on it. So again, we got some good discussion there today. So thanks to Joe and Kevin.
So Barb is always modest about the level of her engagement, just from the standpoint, I think very few of us realize the extent that on an annual basis she's out talking in the hinterlands of Minnesota. And then, as you just indicated, the AWPA thing isn't even up on the listing here. With that, Barb, I'm going to mention that the upcoming events, the schedule remains full, March 18th through 19th. Adam Franco will be delivering a presentation down there during the Facility Notification Center. Barb will be down at the American Gas workshop in Kansas City. And then CGA Conference and Expo, Colorado Springs. Barb will be on several panels there. And then Minnesota Transportation Conference and Expo. Bob Bisquez and Barb will be presenting there. Barb, any additional, or Bob, any additional? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me just comment on that. So the first one is a fairly new organization that consists of most of the notification centers, 811 centers in the U.S. So they're aware of the work that we're doing, and now we're giving them a presentation. Adam's going to do that because I've got conflicting dates. And then the Minnesota Transportation Conference, Terry Holcomb from MnDOT's going to join us as well as part of the presentation, so that we get his expertise and his experience during that session. And then the CGA conference, there's two panels there. One is on GIS mapping and viewing maps. The second one is on innovation. How in the world did you guys get this far? You know, how did you do it? I think there's one or two other folks talking about innovation at that panel.
Okay. Adam, do you want to chime in, or Bob, anything you want to add?
No, I'm in an airport, so I'm trying to keep the background noise off for you. But I am looking forward to the presentation next week.
I hope you're getting
And I
better.
just sent, yeah,
I am. I was good enough to travel, so.
I just sent you that presentation this morning for you to give it that.
Yep,
that
it came
talk.
through. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Okay, doke.
I'm
That
good,
takes
Steve.
us. I'm sorry, Bob, you got something?
No, I was just saying I was good.
Okay. That takes us to the next item. That's the website. We're evolving as we go. Many kudos go out to OCC Creative. They went through and did an extensive, as you can see, here's just one page. They said you ought to do it this way, that way, whatever. We're working on changes as it currently exists, and you'll be seeing a request come out to you for a review that will be sent out upon completion of the update that's being worked currently on the FuzionView.org website. Here's the front side. We've gone with a little change in color and whatever. And then onto the back side, a tremendous amount of work went into basically going through all the old files for the past 4 years, figuring out what we need to keep, what's important for long-term record, which items should be available to help, for instance, in the right of a white paper, things of that nature. And they're all staged basically now in the website in a basically team restricted area. And those that are on the leadership team, they have access to it. So it's from everything from all of our agendas, recordings, presentations, anything that's been done for this entire process is available as a resource on this collaboration and coordination page. Project logo, it's now set at this FuzionView version, which will be getting refined and be made available for use in various other products. But here's the copy of the original rough, with the concept of basically the iris being the view and the spokes coming in being the various elements of underground infrastructure that are being seen. Once again, kudos to OCC Creative. They have offered up ideas about what our brochure should look like. We perhaps steered them a little bit off course initially by asking for just an engineer only kind of approach. And our last review meeting was on March 4th. And so this is coming to conclusion in terms of getting a product out that you can take a look at. And they've come up with some great stuff like a new era of damage prevention, just the kind of tickler stuff that people that kind of brain power and that kind of focus have been able to come up with. And they're also in the midst of developing a social media plan being in development. So that's the update on our promotional media. Why you will see us, coming out to you for survey feedback is because we don't want to be on the left-hand side with our head buried down thinking, oh, the leadership team's really smart and they figured out what everything should look like. The reality is the herd wisdom is what we're after in that putting out both the review of the website and the review of the brochure. So please, when that tickler comes your way here within the next month or so, we really ask that you engage on that and help us out with looking at what we're providing you with and giving us feedback. Negatives just fine, as anyone that's been on this process for any length of time. I'm big on the rocket ship always blows up on the launching pad a couple of times before it goes up. So there you go. That moves us into swim lane number 2, project management. And before I proceed, is there anything further that we need to discuss relative to the social media and those items? Barb, do you have anything?
Yeah, well, Steve, I've got a couple other outreach things that are scheduled that I didn't cover. Just so you know that they keep coming in, and we can update that later. But there's always more. Yep.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So to put in perspective our request for response to a surveys that will be coming out, you ponder this for a minute. This is the rate at which meetings have been taking place since the last time we met. So I'm not driving down into what we're doing exactly, but on a weekly basis, there's 3 meetings. And so that's 39 a quarter. And that's the development piece, coordination, whatever. And in pretty much every case here, I'm being conservative about the number of meetings. Then there's monthly meetings, like 5. We typically have got a couple of leadership meetings. There's a couple of ad hoc, and then several of us are attending the effort that's going on up in Canada. And then there's a quarterly meeting as you're sitting in right now. So that means we've had approximately 55 meetings since the last time this large group got together. So it's kind of a pretty brisk pace on moving through this stuff. And this is what it's taking to make some of the other stuff that you'll see happen here shortly taking place. Here's the rundown of where we are on money. We always knew from the beginning that based on our projected total estimated budget, we'd come in somewhere between 250 and 300,000. We've been pledged to date 225,000. So we're sitting with a projected shortfall of 75,000. One of the items that's sitting on the unfunded line right now is what we call a field markup capability, but there are other elements that are either short funded or are gapped for right now. So kind of a point of focus is trying to figure out where to get that additional money to get us across the finish line. And as it indicates here, ongoing discussions right now on how to close that gap. So to give you a sense of where we are on the total burn of the money that GSOC put forward, we burned about 63% of it. And we're now shifting primarily to burning the money that came in from PHMSA. We're at about 16% on that. And to give you just in each category, there are the way contracts were structured. There's certain things that each contract can pay for. So we have to be careful about how we allocate the attribution for how money is being spent. And we're now to a point where we can do a better job of burning through the PHMSA money. That has a, if you will, goes away date on September 30th with a potential extension on it, but we want to try to burn as much of that as we can. And that is going to be driven by the next factor, I believe, that I got up here, staffing. We're currently fully staffed, and we're executing on what we're calling the wide and fast plan. As I've indicated here, we're working multiple different items at the same time so that we don't have a linear process where we get to the end of the development of the software and then think, oh, hey, maybe we need a website. Oh, hey, maybe we need some brochures. We're trying to do multiple things at the same time. So, as I briefed last time, we had some shortfalls. Those have been filled. And as I'll mention here, as we get closer into the turning the show over to Bob to do a product demo, we are anticipating some flexible needs as we move forward. You've seen this before. We are issuing a weekly progress report to report on where we are on moving along with getting things done. That goes out to the leadership team. But we've also added in if you will, an effort so that there's a clearer definition of where we are on progress in each of the elements that need to be built. And I will show you how they break out here in a way that's more graphic. But this gives you an idea of some of the support elements that are taking place to keep the project moving forward and focused. In state, this is a beginning and ongoing discussion, and kind of pause as I go through this one. These are the things that we're thinking about as we approach the delivery of the software and thinking about what happens next. So we're trying to get ourselves maybe a year or so ahead in planning for what that's going to look like. And so here are kind of some givens. Software ownership. FuzionView is going to be released as open source, and that has always been the intent from the very beginning, that we want to make the software available in a way that that anyone can come along, pick up the code, and do whatever they would like to do with it. As a function of the PHMSA contract, the federal government will hold the IP rights to the released product. That ensures that it is in the public domain. The follow-on IP rights, if you will call it owned, by Shared Geo, who will serve as the open source host. And anyone that's familiar with the open source world knows that it's kind of this, as someone once described it, a bunch of tribes. Nobody really owns anything, but Shared Geo will serve as the host for where the product lives, if you will. And anyone can come along and take, again, that code and do other things with it. And then that build out of whatever they do ends up being whatever they wish to, how frame it, whether it, ends up being something that they put the rights on or whatever. As far as the main elements, what our current sort of vision of where we are with this thing is that GSOC will carry for the outreach efforts. OCC will transition to being the primary onboarding organization, and FuzionView will be integrated into OCC's processes. Maintenance and upgrades will be available from Shared Geo and as an open source product and or others. If somebody decides they've got another firm that they would prefer to work with or think does a better job, they have a perfect opportunity to do that. And as appropriate, FuzionView Development Advisory Committee will be created. And that's if, as things play out the way we anticipate they will, that other organizations will become interested in getting involved or need to steer how development happens in Minnesota. We're envisioning that there will be a development advisory committee that, and I've briefed this before, and I'll just remind you with the following graphic, but the current UUMPT organization may continue to be around to address other industry issues, and that will be a leadership decision as we get further on down the road. So I'll stop right there and see if anybody's got any questions or additional comments that they would like to add. But this is more or less, it indicates right there at the top of this slide, it's an ongoing discussion. And I think Dean, Barb, or anybody else on the leadership team is going to be open to your input or your thoughts about how we should be thinking about what the end game should look like for this process. So the floor is open.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Bob Bishop with Pelican Corp. Just thinking about, the data collection source and everything that you had just outlined. Is with the idea of an open source program, are you taking open considerations as well to being all inclusive to the other data collection platforms that are currently in the US or North American market?
I'll let Bob answer that question. And I think the gist of what he's going to build on is that from the very beginning, we have not built in a way that is vendor specific. Obviously, there's going to be the need for some, if you will, tweaking to make it work with, for instance, something other than OCC. But in general, everything has been built so it will be universally adaptable. Bob, please help me.
Just first, Bob, are you talking about the data collection of Pelican?
Yeah.
Specifically, or a broader question?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
specifically, yes, but I asked it in a broader sense because there's many solutions available in the market.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was hoping to get you to narrow down your question a little bit. The
Specifically,
focus-
specifically it's for our data collection product, GeoLannis 360.
Right. So
Um,
the FuzionView engine is designed so that it can use any online system as a data provider or data sharing group. So anybody that's got a service in place, the FuzionView engine itself can be connected up to it. We're using a fairly strict naming convention just to keep things organized, as we're working with OCC. But all of the these intermediate kind of groupings of data, that discussion has gone on off and on as we've been building things forward. So all of that stuff is in play as far as using this, inside of other integration efforts. So there's nothing specific to any of the services that we're connecting to, nor how the data is pulled together and reformatted for publication.
Okay. Well, I understand OCC's participation in this from the beginning and respect that position. Is there currently any concern that it's just becoming so crafted to OCC specifically that it could be challenging to the other vendors in the market?
Yeah, let me answer that first, Bob. Back when we were deciding which way to go, we made a conscious decision to do open source, not to do it just within the OCC system, so that it could be used by any call center and obviously any other application that we can't foresee. And so that was a decision that was made by this team.
Understood. Thank you.
And
For perspective, Bob, the
go
way that the way from OCC side, the way that I'm working with Bob is the same way that I would work with like a ticket management company. We're sending information to him via FTP in an XML format. We send him the schema so we knew how to receive it, and then we send it to him. And then he does everything else on his end. So there really isn't anything that I have seen to date that's custom to OCC, custom to OCC's state, like, because Gopher State One Call is obviously the state that's being served by this, but not OCC as a vendor.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Like the utility safety group up in Canada, it would connect to your basically your system as well. They use Pelican. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
good
Bob, for the question. Appreciate it. Okay, moving along. As I indicated, this kind of remains where in-game thought that as things evolve over the next year or so, we thought we'd be sooner on this, but as it turns out, we're thinking that this will probably be a transition step as we have a better architecture understanding in the next year or so. I see Barb wants to jump in and
No, I'm good.
okay.
No, I
Okay.
just got a ding on my phone from something else.
Okay. All right, that takes us over to swim lane number 3. Unless there are any other questions. Adam is jumping on an airplane. Safe travels. Swim lane number 3, product development. Got more or less 3 kinds of things here of the key developments, the in-state, and Bob's gonna give us a demo. So here we go. Key developments. Our development group, as I mentioned earlier, is anticipating we're going to need to flex now and then. For instance, we are thinking it might be good to bring somebody in from the outside to do QA because it's easy enough to get focused in on stuff and think you've got the answer and miss a big item. So that would be an example of flexing. MnDOT is currently meeting to consider a way forward after its successful ITS data test, and you'll see what this looks like as Bob does his demo, that we've successfully demonstrated the ability to, in real time, go and grab information out of MnDOT and make it available. The current planned software completion is going to be the end of this year is kind of the way our test of the wind is, and all major components completed with a focus after that point of being on outreach and tuning as it comes back from as we run into circumstances as things are being implemented. And we're interested in starting a who is next list that would be willing to help us with data transmission testing. Think of that. I'll show you what the alpha release kind of thought is, and that's what's currently being tested right now is the software's ability to go in, grab a view within a respective organization's database and pull that out. So here are the in-game components. Bob has a different way of presenting it, but I hope this helps give you context as Bob's presenting because he's going to be jumping around on several things. There is the core engine function, and right now the alpha version of the core engine has been completed. We're in the testing phase, as you'll see here. The beta is considered to be about 60% complete. And the final version, or I should say the release candidate, is the version that'll come out where we will actually be implementing. And there will be, of course, a user manual that will go with that. Within the onboarding effort, you're going to see a get ready document. I'll call this the Travis document because Travis has been asking for this for quite some time. And we've kind of got a better zero in picture on where we want to go with that. And then when we actually onboard somebody, there's going to be some join or self-registration instructions. And there's actually going to be software created that's going to be able to build the connection, what we'll call, as it's indicated here, self-registry of an organization. Because with over 2,000 utilities in the state, there's simply no way to do a one-on-one with everybody, and this will be a critical element. So it's in development. The authentication system is in fact been implemented.
Mhm.
using something called Keycloak. It's in testing right now. And the way to try to get an account is at that particular URL. And Bob, do you want to put any restrictions on anybody coming in at this point, or how do you want to think about that?
We don't necessarily have to apply anything specifically. If they go to that particular link and they don't have an account or are not logged in, it'll present them with a dialogue. I might actually hit it here when I get into the demo here because we have a fairly short timeout, but it'll have a little link at the bottom for registering. Once you're registered, you need to email me and tell me that you want to have access to the demo site, and I can add you to the access group. Otherwise, you won't be able to get in there even after setting up an account.
Okay. And then currently what you're going to see, Bob is going to be working with a very unrepresentative version of the admin dashboard. I don't know how to describe it any better than that. For the current display is temporary to facilitate build concepts, and it shows viewer capabilities that will be restricted by type. And so Bob will mention that as he's going through it, but it's what you're going to see is kind of the stew version of where we're going with these other elements that will be in play after the admin dashboard gets finalized. There'll be a facility operator dashboard for the control of the organization's database access. And then there'll be 3 different kinds of viewers. There'll be a design engineer viewer, only the viewer of the data that can be downloaded. And there'll be a locator viewer, and there'll be an excavator viewer. And the thinking right now is these 2 are going to be pretty much darn near the same thing initially, but we want to anticipate eventually the need for an excavator viewer, which will incorporate some other features that it won't make sense to put in the locator viewer. And I think with that, you are done having to listen to me blab, and I turn it over to Bob. Bob, the floor is yours for a demo. I will stop the share and you can grab it.
How much time did you want me to try and fill with this? I'm a little bit, I can go different ways.
Well, you've got 30 minutes left, and I imagine you're going to have questions. So I think the fair way to think about it is I would do it interactive. If people have questions or whatever, we don't necessarily have to be here
Okay.
For a set length of time.
I've got some slides in here from a previous presentation. I'm going to run through the slides very quickly just to kind of do an overview, and then I'll jump into like the actual demo. A lot of this the group has already seen, so I can go through it fairly quick. We've got the feed from OCC that is giving us all of the tickets for the whole state right now. So that's what the screenshot that you're looking at represents. And we can go in through this administrative interface, which, by the way, is being replaced. We're actually going to be building a simpler version of this administrative interface that'll actually play into how you view things from a particular data providers or data sharing organizations perspective. In other words, they'll only see their own stuff kind of thing. We're actually pushing into displaying the information in a few different ways as well. From the perspective of setting up a dashboard approach to things, we'll be able to list out the information here in different ways. I'll show the particulars of behind the scenes on where that's at right now. Steve already kind of alluded to the facility operator dashboard side of things. It's come quite a ways actually since even just last week when the last time everybody has seen this on the in the leadership group. So it'll be interesting to see what their response is here. But as we move forward here, the idea is that we're really in this, are we making good decisions about how data is moved back and forth between the system, where it comes in from the sharing entity, and how it gets pushed out to the actual end user and viewer of the ticket information. We've already mentioned the fact that we've got everything under an authentication scheme now. So this is what the window will look like when you try and jump into the UUMPT if you don't have a login. And there's a register button down at the bottom there that you can use to register. and make a new account. You still won't be able to do anything until you're added to one of the access groups. So we don't have a default group that people are added to yet. So that it won't look like you really accomplished anything other than making an account right now. But once you send me the fact that you've got an account in there, I can go into the system and add you to the access list. So there's the register button. The administrative interface, like I said, is where you would go to jump in and grab a new ticket, that kind of thing, and pull the information out of it and link to it. This is the way I've been demonstrating it in the past. And, you get into the information, looking at it from the perspective of the new ticket viewer that we've been building, out all along. And then we have links back over into the existing OCC ticketing system as well. The idea here is that, we're really trying to augment the existing ticket. We're not trying to change any of the existing ticket processes, and we're simply adding new information that'll be linked into the system on the OCC side right now. And we're kind of actively in conversations right now about how that's going to work in the near term. And it sounds like we're just going to have a linking system back into the ticket viewer on the FuzionView side for OCC to utilize and do their testing with. So as we've got all of these different kinds of things that have been added, backgrounds, aerial photography. We've added a few more buttons into the interface. There's different kinds of things that we can do. Some other information that is going to be coming down the line is the organization of the data that comes back out of the tickets. So once a ticket is assembled and the information is grouped, you get tabulations of how many items per data layer come back, all those kinds of things. I'm running through this really quick. The other big main focus here from day one was that we wanted to do a mobile centric kind of approach. So the idea here is that everything is touch capable as far as the mapping and the viewer, the ticket viewer itself works. So, everything inside of the interfaces here can be run on a phone or a small screen device out in the field. There's also a big design component related to caching all of this information so that once you make the ticket download on your device, once you've got it all in your cache on your browser, and this is all browser based, this is not necessarily an app that you have to install. It's all coming out of a browser. The browser will store as much information as it can related to the particular ticket, including any background information, background maps. So as you zoom in and out, there'll be a set number of data cached in the browser for that particular area of the ticket. So you can zoom in and out even after you've lost your cellular connection. That it's not going to be dependent on having a connection to the server. So all the information I already, we already ran through, but you can see that it's displayable from the perspective of a mobile screen. Going back to what Steve was talking about there with the where we're going with the facility operators side of the equation, what you're looking at here is really the raw output that is being used behind the scenes to implement a lot of these new capabilities that we're building. Right now, our big main focus, and it's really the last piece last big piece of the whole project here that is not kind of fleshed out, is this interface that we want to build up for the data providers. So the organizations like MnDOT or a private utility kind of thing, so that they can see just their information, their tickets, all of that aspect, as well as them having a facility to go in and set up their services so that they can be shared with the FuzionView system. All of that right now is in development, and what you're looking at here is one of the services that's available that particular component of the project is going to rely on for populating some of the information that it'll see inside of the interface. So we've got, these are the different owners that have data that is being shared right now with the system, and then you can jump into a particular provider list, and then this is a layer list of all of the information that particular entity is sharing. So City of Glencoe is one of our early data providers, and that's our demo area. That's why they've got the majority of data that's being pulled into the FuzionView system. But this list here actually shows all of the different organizations that are sharing data with in one way or another with the FuzionView system. So we can jump over into a live view here and run through real quick. And, you know, you've seen all of this level of kind of interactivity in the past already. So we can turn the tickets layer on. Of course, I probably need to log in here. There we go. So here's the live set of tickets, and we can go and get the information, jump over into a ticket view. It gives me the polygon back with the 100-foot buffer, and I have all of the information available for each feature item inside of the particular ticket. I have information tabulated by who's providing information, how many features that are coming down with their data set, options for downloading the data. This is a engineering ticket. That's what we're working on right now, and that's the focus. So we have options here for downloading the data in different forms, and we can add to that. I think our next version of things is probably going to have a geopackage option as well. And then we also have a link back into the existing OCC ticketing system, so we can jump right back over into their system as well. And then we've also got different kinds of layers that we can turn on and off. I can turn on the aerial backgrounds. We're actually going to speed up this process here too. The server's configured a little bit. How do I say this? Not ideally. We're going to be working on that. But the point of it here is that we can change the backgrounds out and have different kinds of information available. You'll see that everything is being tabulated now. You can see which layers have what information attached to them. We can isolate them inside of the view. If they've got numbers on the end of them, information has come back for that particular layer. So that's how that's all going to, that's how that's all functioning. And then, okay, so that, this is the ticket viewer. The next piece that, like I said, we were working on was the idea that we wanted to be able to jump into a view of things for a particular data provider. So we're looking at the City of Glencoe option here. This is basically the beginnings of their City of Glencoe dashboard. So this is what they would be able to jump into the system with and be able to see. And they can click on any one of those tickets there, and it'll jump to that particular ticket in their coverage area or their area of interest, for their particular, oops, ran to the wrong one here, for the particular list that they're of tickets that they're interested in. So these are all the tickets that cover the Glencoe area, and we can jump into different versions of different things like that. So this is a MnDOT list of all the different information that's available from MnDOT. And you can see here's a list of all of the different facility operators or data providers, in their own kind of groupings. But what I really wanted to point out here is that while this system is very, very simple in what you're seeing right here, this is going to be the crux of what everything else is going to be built upon. So like I say, we're getting all of these services in place to hand the information out. You can see the different kinds of things that are going on with all of the tickets under their particular area of interest. But this is the basic information and services that are going to be used to flesh out that facility operator interface. And this is the last chunk that we have to kind of build out for the whole project as a whole. That's kind of where we're at right now in a nutshell. I guess my next step here would be to ask if anybody's got any questions.
Blew through that pretty fast, Bob. So why don't you update folks on the things that have changed since the last time they saw this?
Big changes is a lot of this service stuff here that's going on. These APIs that we're putting together to manage all of this different data grouping aspects. This is the biggest stuff that's happened real recently, and this is what's going to be facilitating the build out of that data provider dashboard. So when you go into a particular facility operator's view of things, you'll be able to see the information related to their particular participation in the FuzionView system. So all of the data here is kind of already compiled and set up as an API, and the next piece of the development cycle is going to take this information and make it look nicer, for lack of a better word, in a facility operator dashboard. I'm showing this information in very tabular form and not, in a listing way. There's more than likely going to be a map view as well, where it'll show where the tickets are for a particular data sharing organization. But that's kind of behind the, that's further down in the development cycle. Right now, we're really just worried about capturing who's sharing what data, who has access to what, and making sure that everybody can see the stuff that they're supposed to see. So that's what the focus is on right now. And then
I think
go ahead.
the other thing that's big, Bob, since the last group meeting was the work with WSB and MnDOT, and all the work you did with them and their folks to get to that demo we did with them a week ago Friday. Is there anybody, would you like to comment on that? And would anybody from WSB and MnDOT like to comment on that? Because we learned a lot through that process, and that that it's in a good spot, and so MnDOT is looking at adding more utilities. But I think we should talk about what we learned through that, and the input from MnDOT and WSB, what they learned or experienced through that as well.
I can start it a little bit here. What you're looking at here is a listing of all the information that's coming in from their ITS system, which is their intelligent transportation systems. So these are the separate layers that are being provided to the FuzionView engine from their online web services. And as they're being pulled into the FuzionView engine during their ticket cycling, so in other words, when a ticket comes in, FuzionView goes out and grabs information from their server. These are the layers that they provide information for. And we have that mechanism set up for any one of these particular providers to be able to grab that information. And now we're to the point now where we've gotten past the testing cycle on this and waiting for MnDOT to agree to provide us more information past the ITS version of data. They've got a whole bunch of groups in their organization with data management.
And I unfortunately missed the demo. I don't work Fridays, but I received some positive feedback from some coworkers that did were able to attend it, so I was real happy. It sounded like it went really well, and I think it's about getting buy-in, and that's kind of what those demos are accomplishing.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, just as a kind of a closeout on that as well, we haven't really run into any kind of technical stumbling blocks as of yet. Most of the how do I say it? I don't want to call it slowdowns, but a lot of it is waiting to get permission and making sure people feel comfortable with what the the capabilities that are provided, that kind of thing. So, but technically, we haven't really run into any stumbling blocks. There's been some kind of decision-making stuff that we've had to do internally. Where should we do it this way or that way, kind of thing. And there's probably going to be more of that. But as far as doing the data collection and presenting it and all of that stuff has been fleshing out very well.
So Bob, if in the ideal world, who would you like to try to work with next for a potential of onboarding or testing the ability to connect with their data set?
I don't personally really have any kind of preference. I think it's going to be just whoever steps up next from the development team's perspective. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. I think once we get past this process of building out the data provider's dashboard and setting up this self-service, the idea here is that what we're shooting for with this dashboard is inside of that dashboard, there'll be a system for configuring the sharing process from their particular system into the FuzionView system. And what we're shooting for is that that's going to be entirely automated. They'll be able to test the connection, everything beforehand, and they'll have a master button to say, all right, turn it on. And then the data will be provided, it'll be available to the FuzionView system from then on. They'll have complete control over that on their own. So the facility operator, whoever's sharing the data, And it can be some smaller group of administrators within an organization. So we can have multiple administrators of data providing data from a larger organization. So the FuzionView engine will fully support that. So that's our end goal with this last component. And once we've got that, the idea would be that we could just advertise this link, and once a particular organization has jumped through all of the agreement hoops, which I'm assuming that are being put into place or getting ready to be put in place, they'll be able to share their data with the FuzionView engine.
Hey, Barb and Bob, Brad Henry here. A couple of questions. So the demo you showed here was Glencoe, I believe, and apparently Glencoe is in McLeod County. So should we assume that McLeod County is on board with this idea, at least conceptually?
I don't know if anybody's talked to them directly.
Well, Glencoe, obviously we have permission from.
Well, no, I'm talking about the
Glencoe's.
county now. And let me tell you why I'm asking the question. So we have one major county in the state here who was talking about doing this several years ago. And by and large, there were buy-in from the governmental units in that county, but the private utilities didn't agree at all to share data. And then that's why this thing fell through. So back to my question, have you guys, to me, the bigger issue is going to be getting agreements with all these different parties to share that data. You know, there are 850 cities, there's 87 counties, and there's put a number on how many utilities each of those people have. So again, back to my question, in Glencoe, have you reached out to all of the Glencoe utilities, and are they on board? And then B, have you reached out to all the McLeod County cities to see if they're on board?
Well, the situation, Brad, is that until we really have a great alpha and beta test like this, we didn't want to get ahead of our skis, so to speak.
And again, I'm not being critical. What you've got here is really neat.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying, have you gone to that next hurdle?
Well, one of the things that AGC recommended and wanted to help us with is municipalities, and get in front of a lot of municipalities. So now that we know that this is scalable, it's doable, what is the outreach plan? And so that's that's kind of the next stage, just as you say. So if there's a certain county that you say, Barb, the pump is primed for them, let's go out and talk to them, for example. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you one name right off the top of my head.
Well, we're in a position now to start entertaining pulling in more data providers. So, we've got past kind of our first templating of a process to pull more providers in. We're probably going to run into a couple more stumbling blocks as we go, but we're in a position now to start entertaining pulling them in, and we're still in this kind of manual process, but working towards that automated method of people sharing data with the FuzionView system.
I think one other thing.
Hey, Bob.
There is a new stakeholder committee of all the infrastructure groups in all of Minnesota that's been formed over at the state legislature. So don't forget about that group.
Okay.
And Barb, we can talk about this offline because I think you know who that group is. So
okay.
Somebody else had a question?
Yeah, it was Bob Bishop here at Pelican Court. If you are open to receiving data from other organizations, I just want to throw our hat into the ring and say that we're on your side, and we want to start sending some data your way for testing.
Okay. We'll have to figure out, we'll have to set up a offline meeting here. With a couple of folks probably from the leadership group here and see where we want to go with things.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks,
Barb,
Bob.
you want to take that, or is that something Steve should do?
No, we'll talk at our next meeting,
right.
Which is coming up, and we've got to walk before we run, and we just learned how to walk a week ago Friday in terms of our live demo. So this is real time. It's really exciting. So I really appreciate the comments and the ideas.
So Bob Bishop, do you have data sets in Minnesota?
I think we do have some, but I think that the way that we could send you data even now, it'd be the communication philosophy could be proven. I think of pulling everything out of our data collection solution, because in itself, there's a lot of similarities between GeoLantis and a lot of what's going on here, while you guys are taking it several steps further. But I think that it'd be proactive to even start sharing some data from outside of the state, just to see the relationship work, to help you guys kind of track as the direction you want to head when you get to that next step of opening up the access to that link where people can start testing data sharing.
Yeah, no, your point's well taken. Thank you. Got it.
Yep.
So, as we've indicated, we are shopping for additional guinea pigs besides MnDOT. And if you're aware of the potential at where you may work or somebody you may know, by all means, please let us know. So, Bob, is there additional stuff you want to point out, or?
No, I'm done, I think, unless there's other questions.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. It's great.
Floor is open. Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, that takes us down to, oh, I failed to share, didn't I? Let me do that first. Does that put us back in business?
Yep.
Okay. That takes us to what we'll call open discussion. We can stay as long or short as we need to on this, but here's the idea about what this beast looks like way forward. Threat avoidance and management review. What the heck's that all about? Well, here's the deal. Back to a past life, just as a frame of reference, before an airplane typically leaves the ground now, crews will brief as part of their efforts to get an airplane airborne. They'll talk about what they think are potential threats to the successful completion of going from point A to point B. And it can be things as simple as, I didn't get a wink of sleep last night. You know, the women's swim team was running up and down the hall making all kinds of noise, to we have some bad thunderstorms en route or whatever. And, you know, that kind of builds the awareness within the cockpit that here are the things that, in additional to paying attention to flying the airplane, we need to also be aware of, you know, like a final thing might be, you know, the precision approach at Guam is out, and as a result, we have to fly an ADF approach to get into Guam. Well, you know, that's a threat, and you're trying to build awareness as early as possible. So, as a kind of way of stimulating discussion among the leadership team, we've been framing up with each meeting, what are our threats, and using that to focus our management efforts going forward. And so here are some of the examples of threats, and this is the 6 elements that are there. And what I would ask you to do is, you're sitting in the catbird seat. You've seen what we've done. I've briefed today kind of where we are with the whole process, and it's easy enough to think, well, what did we miss when we think we've got it all? So manpower, an example would be loss of key personnel. Technical progress, that, as Bob kind of alluded to, we haven't run into any unforeseen issues, but there may be some other things we should be thinking about out there. Policy/technical decisions, the old thing of not making a decision is a decision. You can get bogged down on an item, and that can derail things. Support, is there some sort of issues out there that we need to be aware of and be thinking about? Community pushback, we hear that quite often. Brad just alluded to it that, you can come into a community and you get 50% of the folks to participate and 50% that don't want to participate. Financing, well, we've already kind of talked about the threat of running out of money. And then sales pitch, it's the overall project, success is going to really hinge on getting out the right message so that from the very beginning, people are hearing the thought about what we're doing and thinking, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. We've approached as a leadership team every time we've encountered a problem of thinking about it as though for every problem there is an answer. And so I'm going to stop gabbing at this point to a degree and say the floor is open, and we would appreciate if you have any insights about things that in the time you've heard us yap today, that it's apparent to you that we might be not tuned in to something that would do us under. We would love to hear about what your thoughts are on any one of these items, or if you've got something else that you think, might fit into that framework, but again, we've kind of might have missed it. So floor is open.
Bob Bishop here, Pelican Corp. I have a thought. Really impressed with where everything is at. But when I looked at your top 6 examples of threats, from my perspective, I think it would be worthy to consider competition as a threat. Now, and competition could be another organization doing the exact same thing, but maybe they just have a little better presence. They could be pulling some of that key personnel, or the competition could impact this in several different ways. And while I don't think it's direct, but when I think about competition, even today, Chris Stovall's efforts with Linescape kind of fall into that landscape. So wondering, have you guys had open dialogue with Chris, or are you, while I see both platforms have a lot of similarities, there is some uniqueness to the philosophy, but is there any approach of moving in unison, or are these two organizations shaping up to be in fact competition?
I have to give you so I'm going to hand it off to Barb.
Yeah, I think, Bob, if you tell us a little more about Linescape, it's a little bit abstract. I think I just saw it for the first time 2 weeks ago, because it's been under the covers, so to speak.
Sure.
So maybe it's been something I've been asking about and difficult to access.
Yep. So Linescape, it's a commercialized solution, and their focus is on making abandoned line knowledge available through somewhat of a subscription model. So and it's to make it visible within the ticket space. So it's the same idea as FuzionView, that it's making information available through the ticket, but the focus is on managing abandoned lines, because that just kind of seems to be the forgotten lost thing, while it still impacts damage prevention daily, and it's still a huge talking point within the Common Ground Alliance. So they're taking the commercialized approach, and everything that I've seen that they have done and understood what they have said, it's very similar. Like, they could flip the switch and say, okay, we want to put all utilities into this philosophy and make it available to a contractor for X dollars a month. They can see everything in their construction area because we're collecting it, and organizations are providing data into it. And they do have, Chris does have some strong relationships in the industry. I know Kinder Morgan came on full board with Linescape. I think they've got most abandoned facilities in Texas identified, and they're moving into Oklahoma. So while the philosophies are not directly competing today, the technologies that are being developed says that they could be in the future. Does that help?
Yeah, a lot. Yep. Excellent. I think the action item then is to reach out. They're located in Seattle and Vancouver, right?
What, Barb, what was your last question?
Where are they located, if I have the right company?
It's Texas 811. He's the
Yeah.
executive
yeah,
director
okay.
for Texas 811. That's Chris Stovall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we have Adam is in close contact with them. Yep.
Okay, yeah, good.
Adam Franco, OCC. Yeah, thank you.
A great insight. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
bet.
that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. Anything else? Oh, Ryan Nelson, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just had the general thought, as and it's just some of the counterparts within some of those national type transmission infrastructure like you would see with Enbridge. The one thing I don't see on here is legislative and regulatory requirements. So you're gonna see that now different companies have different thoughts about how this is interpreted, but that some of the Department of Transportation requirements where there's a belief that they're not allowed to share maps due to national security concerns. So some of your big fiber lines, your stuff that's kind of your major assets could fall under that as well. So I think as I've thought more about it too, the fact that PHMSA has put in $100,000 into this project means that PHMSA believes that there's value in this. So I think part of that conversation is to speak with whoever we have at PHMSA in regards to the project, say, what can we do to get out ahead of getting those larger operators who may feel that there's regulatory and legislative things that may hold them back from participating, and what that could look like. Because unless it's crystal clear, and I think there's always going to be that concern that they may be violating some of their legislative requirements, if you will. So I just don't see that as a threat. I see kind of the administrative legal logistics, but this is kind of a unique one where some of those bigger assets kind of feeding the main stuff, whereas your more distribution type systems aren't going to fall on some of those national security type. I'm using quotes on national security because it's a little bit of a different thing, but yeah. And I know you've heard this throughout this process. I just want to make sure that was highlighted as a potential threat.
You know what? Even though we've heard it throughout the process, it dropped out of the scan. That's why we're doing this, because it's a funny thing that you get so close to something and you think you got it channeled down, and something fell by the wayside. So that was a great comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know, and I can't remember, is Marathon in Minnesota? I can't remember if Marathon's in Minnesota.
I don't think so. I think that's largely Southwest, isn't it?
Yeah, I know they're in North Dakota a lot, but I just couldn't remember if they're in Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't see Marathon at all.
Because I know they've taken a more open approach to sharing their mapping. So even if they're not in Minnesota, I wonder if Marathon would be a great group to reach out to chat with about how they've approached this, to see how they've come to their conclusions. And I know if you at the 2023 CGA, I could look at the app. I don't know if either of you have the application from 2023 still loaded. If you could look and see who presented for Marathon on mapping, it was either 2023 or 2022 that they did a whole session at the CGA conference on their mapping program. But just a thought of maybe kind of their approach to things could open the door for a lot of those major folks, because they've taken a very open approach to their mapping.
Barb, isn't that
Ryan, yeah, exactly. So Ryan, that's a great idea. So when I've been working with CGA on the mapping next practices committee, Sarah and Erica mentioned that Marathon is presenting a big presentation on open and viewing of maps, open access.
Yeah.
So
I think they would be a huge help to bring companies like Enbridge or your other big pipe operators or big fiber type operators. So
I just got a little bit of an add-on here too that kind of goes to, Brad's comments as well as Ryan. And, while we've been focusing on the development side of the FuzionView engine to work in an open data transfer kind of mode, the idea there is that, the data is available and we can access it. That doesn't mean that it needs to necessarily be implemented in an open manner. So the stuff that Dean's group is putting together with agreements works from the top down. It can go from the facility, the data provider side all the way down to whoever's looking at it through the interface. So all of this stuff has been, we've been talking about it, as we put everything together from day one. So there's ways of kind of mollifying, how people might be worried about, what they're sharing and with whom. The FuzionView system actually can track who's seeing what. So, I mean, all of that information would be available, and even could even be set up as a report, who's seeing what, how much of it, that kind of thing. So the focus on the development as an open source project is on making everything move back and forth nice and cleanly. But that doesn't preclude the idea that you couldn't deploy it in a little bit more of a, I don't want to call it a restricted manner, but maybe a controlled manner.
Brad here again. Are we talking about threat avoidance right now?
We are.
I guess I missed the point. What's the point about sales pitch, wrong message?
Well, Dean absolutely hates that I post from a negative perspective.
Well, you're
so what I've tried to do is show some examples, and Bob and Ryan followed through with other ideas about things that we maybe can be considering as potential threats and how to mitigate them as we continue to push the process forward. So the sales pitch, if you think about it, ultimately, after the software is in place and we didn't run out of money and we kept the key personnel and so on and so forth, if we get out there and we're selling this incorrectly, like you will do this, or it's the end of the world, then you got a problem and you're gonna get pushback. So 1 through 6 I tried to put up examples of threats that we've considered. And the point was, is there other stuff out there that we missed? Because the collective group here has got a much wider perspective and understanding than just a handful of us.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, Brad, I just sent a note to Adam Franco because he knows the Texas 811, just to say that Bob Bishop brought it up and see what more he can find and should we follow up somehow. So again, we want to take action on items that people bring up.
Another basic tenet too, and I think this is sort of directed at Brad, is that a tenet of our approach is that we're kind of really targeting the people that want to volunteer data early on. The idea is to keep building this data sharing with people that want to share, and the ones that are the holdouts or have a pushback of some reason, eventually they'll join the foray. But we're not trying to get everybody to participate immediately. I mean, first of all, we can't even handle supporting that. We really want to do this in a slow manner, but we really want to push this out to the people that want to volunteer and share their data of their own free will to begin with. And then the idea there being that once you've got a tipping point, then it's easier to do that little bit of a harder sell on the people that are having a problem with sharing data.
I was exchanging some messages with Dean. I'm not sure how many people on this call are aware of Representative Aaron Cagle's new statewide infrastructure committee. Is anybody else aware of this? This is probably the most significant thing that I've seen in engineering and infrastructure, and since I've been on the scene, and so there's some things happening statewide that we should all be aware of, and this message fits right in with what some of Aaron Cagle's goals are. And I can help to elaborate those later, but that's kind of why I picked up on, I was wondering what you meant by the sales pitch, wrong message thing. Maybe my point is that being aware of what her committee is all about, she and her committee is one committee that needs to be aware of this message. End of my message.
Thank you, Brad. Actually, that bubbled to the top something we have, if you will, thought about it in the past, but again, it dropped out of the scan, so that's why we're asking. So thank you. I've got it noted. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
It
and
actually-
then Phil gave some info on chat about City of Las Vegas tried to mandate this. And his comment is concern of pushback is essential here. Oh, and Ryan asked me about the rep from Australia before we did chat. Yes, she did talk to me up in Banff. Yeah.
So, Phil, do you want to expand on your comment? Going once, going twice. I'll make sure
And
that.
Brad,
Go ahead.
and I just think Brad, why don't you connect with me and Dean on this infrastructure committee? We heard about it in the fall, and then we
Barb
hadn't
will,
followed up on it.
yeah, Barb will do. We'll touch
Okay,
base
thank you.
today or tomorrow. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Poor Phil can't unmute himself. I don't know if there's a way for me to override that.
I've known Phil long enough. I can tell you what Phil's going to say.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself.
All right.
But thank you, Phil, for that input. Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts?
No, don't listen to Brad. Is his last is his last comment.
This crowd's turning ugly.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Oh dear, oh dear.
All right. Should we go going once, going
Mhm.
twice, gone? I think that's where we are.
Yeah.
3 great insights. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And oh, by the way, if you're too scared to unmute and offer something, by all means, please consider shooting me or Barb an email, because again, we're trying to make sure we keep the ship out of troubled waters. And anything that can be done to do that, it's great. Okay.
Just one other comment I have is the CGA meeting this year. If many of you are going, it's heavily focused on the 50 and 5, reducing 50% damage reduction in 5 years. So as you go to that conference and participate, that's what you'll see. And again, any feedback you learn from there, please send to us, and any information or ideas you get from there, please let us know.
There you go. So that takes down to where we need your help. That's the foot stomper. Ongoing socialization of what we're doing here, to the degree that you on a one-to-one level can outreach folks and tell them, oh no, it's going to be done like this, and this is what they're thinking, and they're open to input, and they want to have a product that serves the industry. If you got any insights on money, by all means, please send them my way, and I will be forever thankful for learning about if your company's got a grant program that we're not aware of, or if you've stumbled something across in the grant system. By all means, please let us know. So upcoming, this is what we're looking for. You'll be seeing a tickler come out about asking for input, thoughts, whatever, on an updated website when it gets done. You'll see the first copy of promotional material. And to the degree that you're willing to do a review, we'd really appreciate it. As Bob's indicated, you can in fact sign up to come in and poke around. And we'll be having further discussions on how to shape that so you can have a worthwhile experience looking at as we get closer to something that would be a follow-on product. And then last but not least, as already indicated, we're looking for additional testing partners. So if your company or whatever is interested, please send us a note, either myself or Barb, and we'll get a chance to take a look at a opportunity there with again, we're in the testing phase to see if we can make the function work, not so much broadcasting your data. We're looking at the technical implementation piece to make sure it makes sense. And with that, anything else along those lines, Barb? Looks like Phil's suggested to us that we might want to take a look at whether or not there's something to do with the Federal Highway Administration stuff. We'll take a look at that one. Thanks.
I got a little bit of a
just,
closeout demo too when you're done. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay. No, I'm done. Great meeting, and thank you for all the input and discussion.
Can I
Okay.
grab the screen real quick?
You can grab the screen real quick.
Just something I forgot when I was doing my demo. So what you're looking at here is a list of all of the tickets and active tickets in the FuzionView system. And what I think I kind of glossed over a little bit was the idea that we've got data in other places besides just Glencoe. So there's data that's available in different areas of the state that is being pulled in by the FuzionView system. So these are all pieces of information that are coming from the ITS data, which is state coverage. So wherever they've got their intelligent information systems implemented, the data is actually available already. So when we get new data pulled in, you'll see a lot of these tickets don't have any features associated with them, which is that last column, but some of them do. And they're related to that intelligent information systems. So the data that's available is coming directly out of MnDOT. That's it. I just wanted to close with that. Didn't know that I wasn't sure if I was. The idea there is that you can see that we've got all of these. The information is flowing very well now with the people that are the groups that are sharing information.
Say, Bob, did you see Phil's comment where that ITS data actually came from?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, give him a little kudo.
Okay, I think we're
Well,
done.
then I'll say thank you, Phil.
There you go. That works.
There you go. Got it.
Okay, the third time next meeting, Thursday, June 13th, 1 p.m. Anything else from the floor? Barb, final comments otherwise?
No more comments. Good meeting. Thank you for participating and supporting.
Thank you much. And here's your closing thought. I've been discriminating with only male comments, so here we go. Don't wait for George to do it because he won't. You got to pick up the torch and run with it. So that's all, folks. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll do a follow-up message to get out the cleanup stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you again. Appreciate it. I learned a lot. Very nice. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Liz, for the hand clapping. Okay. And Phil, thumbs up. Thank you, guys. Good comments. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow.